think my colleague has left his tinfoil hat in the men's room before he attended question period here today.
Is a mass exodus coming? Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today we're getting some inside reporting on Mark Carney's Liberal Party that he's running the ship there in a manner that is pissing off people. He's not showing respect to his Liberal caucus, even his cabinet. Let's jump into this. This Friday House session is quite something. It's basically just attacks on Mark Carney and his connections to Brookfield.
Minister's trust may be blind, but the math is not. This week we found out from Brookfield's chief operating officer that the Prime Minister stands to make millions in carried interest payments from his company's success related to climate and infrastructure schemes that he set up. Many, if not all, of the public financial instruments, funds, and policies the Prime Minister started pushing when he was pulling Trudeau's strings as his economic advisor in 2020 align with Brookfield's strategy and success. How is it ethical when the Prime Minister is using the power of his office to benefit him and his company? Oh.
This is music to my ears. I've been saying this for 11 months now. And just to note, this is the very first segment in English on Friday. This isn't deep into the House session. This is the first back and forth here.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I met with the operating engineers all across the country who came to talk to me about the investments we're making in building Canada strong. And Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, they're so excited about the work for their members. And
they're so excited that Mark Carney is ripping off taxpayers. So she just goes on to word salad here.
COO also confirmed that the umbilical cord between the Prime Minister and his company will stay attached until 2034 because the fund the Prime Minister set up will mature then. That means if it does well, he does really well. But here's the problem. He knows full well what's in his blind trust and is using the power of his office to promote policies that benefit his company and him. AI, modular housing, carbon capture, nuclear, and the transition model of public risk for private return he set up while advising Trudeau will make him millions. How is this ethical, if not illegal? Oh!
Something else to note about that. Mark Carney has shares in Brookfield that vest 2033 and 2034. These are retention shares to try to help keep Brookfield's stock value high. He's got 209,000 shares at a strike price of $35 and 200,000 shares at a strike price of $40. And as of December 31st, they were valued at $6.8 million US. Today, they're worth a lot more than that. And converted to Canadian, last I checked, it was about $14 or $15 million. And as you saw there, those stock options Mark Carney has vest in 2033 and 2034. Those years line up exactly when Carney's Brookfield Global Transition Fund will have completed its cycle, whether it's 10 years at 2032 or 12 years, the optional 2 additional years, 2034.
Canada's GDP growth last quarter was 2.6%, blowing out the economist's projections, Mr. Speaker. That's what growing Canada strong looks like. It's an investment.
We have huge companies leaving Canada, like one of the biggest copper companies, Stellantis, all of them. They have the audacity to brag about how things are going. They keep pumping up numbers with temporary part-time jobs for the government. Meanwhile, private sector jobs are fleeing Canada or they're going bankrupt or bust, moving. It's always lies from these guys.
Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister has vast conflicts of interest with Brookfield. That's why the Ethics Commissioner specifically told him not to meet with Brookfield. Despite this, the Prime Minister secretly met with the Chief Operating Officer of Brookfield in October. So a simple question, why did the Prime Minister violate the clear direction of the Ethics Commissioner?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, the members' resort to personal attacks and dealing in conspiracy theories speaks to a lot.
I'm sorry, what? Personal attacks and conspiracy theories? This came from the COO of Brookfield Corporation in committee. He said that. This is not conspiracy theory. Once again, Tim Hodgson, Sean Fraser, saying this is conspiracy theory should get them fined for this. This should be illegal and against the law to openly lie in the House of Commons like this.
Larger issue. A member from the province of Alberta today unable to celebrate the agreement that we have achieved that his own premier is celebrating in public about the opportunity to protect the environment and create good jobs. If he won't stand up for Alberta, I, as somebody from the East Coast who spent 5 years there, absolutely will. The GDP numbers that we've seen come in the past quarter, seeing it go up 2.6%, means good jobs for people and food on the tables for families. We're here to create jobs. It's a shame the Conservatives are opposed.
This guy's unbelievable, especially after this story that just came out. Crown seeks 8.5-year sentence for a man who R-word and impregnated a 13-year-old. Twice. He was 44 at the time, now he's 47. He did this multiple times. The baby remains with the teenager, because she's 13. He was released 3 times, violated the conditions twice, charged and convicted those breaches, then finally detained in custody upon his 3rd breach. The man is also not a Canadian citizen and was permitted an adjournment to explore the effect this eventual guilty plea would have on his immigration status. The Liberals let in an R-word monster to attack a 13-year-old multiple times, and now they're worried about his immigration status. Ship this guy over to North Korea for punishment.
Conspiracy theory, the ethics commissioner told the prime minister not to meet with Brookfield, and then he did so. Now, this is a prime minister that was the chair of Brookfield and who stands to make tens of millions of dollars from in future bonus pay and from stock options. And not only did the prime minister clearly violate the direction of the ethics commissioner, he attempted to cover it up by not disclosing the meeting. Is this the prime minister's idea of ethics?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, I think my colleague has left his tinfoil hat in the men's room before he attended question period here today. He's here talking about things that do not matter to the people at home as much as things like doctors, jobs, lower taxes.
Wow. So Canadians don't care about our prime minister ripping us off, abusing our system and making himself rich. This is absolutely deplorable.
Frankly, Madam Speaker, it is a shame that members of this House of Commons are simply not focused on the priorities of Canadians. The GDP has increased 2.6% in the...
Wow, these guys have ruined our country, and he has the audacity to say that. This is not just some new Liberal. This guy's been here for years. He destroyed immigration, he destroyed housing, and now the justice system, and he has the audacity to even utter those words. I can't imagine Carney's going to want to keep him around. He's got the stank of Trudeau and the Trudeau era all over him, and Carney's getting rid of people, or they'll be leaving the party. We got this bombshell dropping on iPolitics today. Guilbeault to leave cabinet after Carney inks pipeline MOU with Alberta. Now, we already know this news, but it says here the source who asked to remain anonymous, and iPolitics talked to the source and has quotes from the source, it's not hearsay, said Guilbeault repeatedly fought with the government to prioritize climate action, but he found himself unable to defend the pipeline MOU with Alberta. Another Liberal source said exempting Alberta from the CER, which is the Clean Electricity Regulations, which is one of the carve-outs Daniel Smith was able to get for Alberta, which requires provinces to transition towards a net zero electricity grid by 2050, was the poison pill behind Guilbeault's resignation, adding that the government was consistently receiving requests for carve-outs to the CER during this time, and they were all rejected. Also says some environmentalists and BC Liberal MPs have cried foul over the prospect of shipping oil to the province's northwest coast, pointing to the region's ecological importance and the need to transition away from fossil fuels. Then it goes on to say another Liberal source who asked not to be identified to discuss the issue freely said Carney is running the Prime Minister's office like the CEO of a Fortune 100 company, and that doesn't operate on consensus or a great deal of deliberation or consultation. Just as I said, Mark Carney doesn't give a crap about the rest of these Liberals. He's got his inner circle, and that's it. And that's what this says here. The PM, the source says, only brings into the decision-making process a select few people from the PMO and cabinet ministers like Energy Minister Tim Hodgson that are seen as the inner circle. As I've mentioned here, as I've started putting stars on them here, Doug Guzman, inner circle, Tim Hodgson, inner circle. This is my speculation. Freeland, Champagne, Marc-Andre Blanchard, Michael Sabia, Evan Solomon. Obviously, Justin Trudeau was a part of that, but I think Chrystia Freeland and Carney worked to get him out. That's why she resigned the day she did, on the day of the budget. I think Deborah K. Orita is. And of course, you can't forget about Don Farrell, who's running the Major Projects Office. It goes on to say, this is the Fortune 100 CEO, get out of my way party now. I think some people might leave before Christmas or shortly after Christmas before the House resumes. Do I think it's a risk to the government? I don't know. They have parted from the last 9 years of some policy decisions and certainly style and approach, so I don't know if it's a risk necessarily for people to move on. This just confirms that Mark Carney is running this like a CEO. He doesn't give a crap about people unless they're his inner circle. Otherwise, they're just a vote for him and has no regard for these people. Just look at this clip here, being posted by Rachel Gilmore of all people. How smug and arrogant is Tim Hodgson? We're seeing it more and more. This guy's an arrogant jerk, just like Mark Carney.
Marilyn Slett did mention that you had reached out, but she says that the timeline that was offered, it's just impossible for them to get from where they are in the coast of BC to the time and place of the meeting. So,
it's called Zoom. It's called Zoom.
Well,
you know, it's a wonderful. I think that's what we're using, David.
I understand, but I'm also not a coastal First Nation chief, and I don't know if.
Wow! Not only did he just mock First Nations, insult them, and with this whole Zoom comment, he's laughing about it. He thinks this is funny.
They would want to be met with in person and face to face, you know, if they are going to have a bitumen pipeline, right?
I am happy to go visit any. I will happily make the trip.
This is probably one of the only times I'll agree with David Cochrane.
I'm also not a coastal First Nation chief, and I don't know if they would want to be met with in person and face to face, you know,
if they're trying to push this through with First Nation support, which I don't agree on, because what company would want to give up ownership of their business that they're investing money into to another entity, in this case First Nations, that has power over their project? But regardless, that aside, if they are going to run this with First Nations in mind, then why wouldn't he go and talk to them? He doesn't even have the basic respect to go meet with people involved in these projects.
If they are going to have a bitumen pipeline, right?
I am happy to go visit.
Mo, it seems like he's happy to laugh in the face of First Nations here. Like, you can't make this stuff up. These guys are so arrogant. They think they can run this show like this and not get thrown out of office. Every single debate in the House of Commons today on Friday is about Mark Carney ripping off taxpayers having investments in Brookfield. This is going to catch up pretty darn quick. Meanwhile, we've got another one of Carney's inner circle here, Champagne, commenting on Guilbeault's resignation.
What do you say to Canadians who are concerned about the environmental worries that Mr. Guilbeault laid out in his resignation letter?
What I would say, we are all wanting to meet the moment when it comes to make sure that we reduce our carbon footprint, and that we do that in a responsible way. I would really say to Canadians who are watching, obviously we are, reducing your carbon footprint will make you more competitive. There's a lot.
No, it won't. That's not proven. Out of this entire situation with this MOU, they have not proven to us once how they're going to make Canada more money, bring in more jobs. None of it. It's all about their agenda.
A lot of things that we can give to ourselves, that we have the technology, we have the people to at the same time, grow our economy, but at the same time reduce our carbon footprints.
No, it won't grow our economy though. No one wants to buy our CO2. That's the problem.
So I would say we're very cognizant of having to meet the moment, both on the economy, but at the same time having these our climate competitiveness agenda going at the same time, so that we meet the moment on both.
This moment is just a bunch of snake oil salesmen ripping off taxpayers. You can't sell CO2, guys. I should note, though, Daniel Smith says the oil industry is finding ways to use some of that CO2 to pump it into the ground to push some of the oil up. So they're trying to find ways to use it. But in reality, that's all they're getting out of it. We're not selling this over to the UAE or to Brazil or to America or China. No one wants to buy our CO2. Jumping over to CTV here, we got Christy Clark, who just absolutely goes off on David Eby, humiliates the guy beyond belief.
Of course, David Eby didn't get invited to the meeting. He spent his life protesting economic projects across British Columbia. You don't invite the protesters into the meeting. So David Eby needs to decide, does he want to be a professional protester, or does he want to step into the shoes and become a premier and actually start being a part of the conversation around these projects in the country? And it makes total sense to me that these two would have sat together and decided, we're going to present something, and then we're going to take the time to go and consult with people. David Eby, probably less important than the First Nations, but both necessary.
Wow, that is just so scathing. David Eby just getting ripped 6 ways from Sunday on every single panel. He's just a laughing stock of Canada.
Yeah, I couldn't help. Thank you, James. I was just trying to imagine, Christy, how your reaction would have been if you were premier and a big decision like this was coming. And because you'd raised concerns, which I recall that you did raise a number of concerns about Northern Gateway when it was proposed as premier, which was proper. What is the risk? And allow me to finish. And just the respect. I think this is a question of respect. And to say the professional protest stuff, that's frankly so 2001. That the premier...
David Eby is a protester, though. He was a lawyer for activists, and he protests with them. He is an activist himself.
British Columbia, David Eby, has been agreeing and signing agreements for tens of billions of dollars in this specific region based upon collaboration and consent with First Nations groups. That's the critical thing. That's what the markets are looking for. That's what investors are.
David Eby's been collaborating with the Chinese Communist Party. His advisor answers to them. Our country's so corrupt, coast to coast. It's hard to find pockets where it's not completely corrupt.
Looking for this dichotomy of like, oh, he's a protester and therefore why would you talk to him? I think undermines Mr. Carney's ability to get things done. And I think there's a little bit of an education, as is often the case with our federal partners, to say, come to BC, listen, be humble, and learn that partnerships are better than just declaring MOUs in Calgary and saying it's a done deal, which I know they're not saying, but the process hasn't started well.
You can tell by her face here, she doesn't agree. We've got to cover this bombshell news here. So Zelensky's Ukrainian government is completely crumbling. They are wrapped up in scandal, in financial corruption. It's the stuff that I've been calling out for a while now. Ukraine's one of the most corrupt countries in the world, and now it's getting proven.
A line of breaking news to bring you coming to us from out of Ukraine. Now, you will know that there has been a corruption scandal engulfing that man's administration, President Volodymyr Zelensky. In the last few minutes, officials have reported that the anti-corruption authorities, that is NABU, have carried out searches of President Zelensky's offices. That's according to officials there.
Well, yes, and as we're saying, Ukraine has been caught up in this damaging corruption scandal. Anti-corruption agencies have been talking about how they believe that some of President Zelensky's close associates could be involved in some kind of plot. The thought is that perhaps money has been skimmed off Ukraine's energy sector. And this scandal erupting, of course, while Ukrainians are suffering blackouts caused by Russian bombing. So that investigation is underway. So this latest development is that officials are now saying that those anti-corruption authorities are conducting searches of President Zelensky's chief of staff.
Yeah,
It's just such evil in this world. Skimming money off the energy sector while rolling blackouts are happening.
Around that energy company, Energy-Atom. And the main focus of this is one of President Zelensky's key allies, a man called Timur Mindich, who is accused of being involved in this scandal. He has fled Ukraine. He fled a couple of weeks ago. The authorities there want to speak to him, of course. But as we see from this latest line of reporting, these searches now.
So we've got further updates on this. So Ukrainian man suspected of the Nord Stream pipeline explosions placed in custody in Germany. As this account points out here, it turns out Ukrainians did sabotage the pipeline. It was blamed on the Russians to try to drag Germany and Europe into a ground conflict.
Now to the investigation into an alleged $100 million corruption scandal in Ukraine. Authorities say they have detained at least 5 people connected to an alleged high-level plot inside Ukraine's nuclear energy sector. The scandal involves senior officials, including a former business partner of President Volodymyr Zelensky. The country's energy minister resigning but denies any wrongdoing. Tom Sufi-Berg, our foreign correspondent, joins us now. So, Tom, how deep does this alleged corruption go, and what's the latest on the investigation?
Yeah, it goes right to the heart of the Ukrainian state, Perry, and the Ukrainian government. We're talking about a months-long investigation, hours of wiretaps, which allegedly show a kickback scheme, so payments in return for big money, public contracts at Ukraine's nuclear power company. So 2 government ministers, the justice minister and the energy minister, have been forced to resign. And a key suspect, which is being investigated in this scandal, according to the Anti-Corruption Bureau in Ukraine, is Timur Mindich, and he is a former business associate of Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president. Now, there's no evidence implicating Zelensky directly in the allegations or evidence.
Just a whole bunch of people in his cabinet. How many billions of dollars did we send of taxpayers over there? This is why I've been calling this out for a long time. If it smells like a pile of crap, it's probably a pile of crap.
That he knew about this corruption scandal before it was brought to his attention by investigators. But there are major questions for Zelensky to answer. And you've got to remember that only months ago, Zelensky was trying to curb the power of the 2 key institutions, anti-corruption institutions, which are leading this investigation. And he only backed down on that because of international pressure, namely from the European Union.
This is wild. It's all coming crumbling down. I doubt the mainstream media in Canada will even post this news. Yeah, that's why I'm posting this. I've had people message me saying that this whole conflict with Ukraine and Russia has been good for Ukrainians because they've been able to use this as a way to get out of Ukraine over to other countries, because countries like Canada have opened the doors where in the past it was a lot harder to get out of Ukraine. Freeland is going to get another speeding ticket trying to get away from this.